Good morning. Welcome to September 11th, 2024. Thanks for joining me on this day. I hope you all watched the debate last night, but we're going to talk about something that's closer to home to start. I couldn't believe the clip with Melanie Jolie yesterday. And when we come back, we're going to start with that and a few other observations on this very historic day. Be right back, folks.
So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need political change, but we also need the resolve to resist.
Yes, please like us. Keep subscribing, folks. We're really building up to that 30,000, which I hope to be at long before the end of September. But thank you for all your support, subscribing, and showing that you like the station. Share it right now with your friends and family. Like it right now. I know you think it's not important, but it does beat YouTube suppression, which we got big time yesterday with that interview we did with my friend Camille Elxns about the million-person march on September 20th. You think YouTube wants to talk about that? No, that's almost off. That's off the talking points. We don't talk about million-person march. We don't talk about Canadians being upset by gender ideology. No, that's not something we can discuss, at least with a large audience. So they made sure that was completely suppressed yesterday. Those of you who watched it, thank you. We appreciate it. We will be, obviously, we're going to have the march September 20th. I'll be talking about it briefly every day, but I hope you all had a chance to watch the presidential debate last night with former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. But as I was watching it, I recognized an ominous parallel to our own Melanie Jolie. And I'm going to get into that in a second. What am I talking about? But first of all, as one of our viewers pointed out, today is the anniversary of the September 11th terrorist attacks. Now, whether or not you believe that it was entirely due to Osama bin Laden and the terrorists, or whether you think there was an inside job, I'm not going to comment on that today because, believe me, I'm still looking at that. But I do remember where I was on September the 11th and exactly where I was when the event happened. I was getting out of my car in the parking lot in front of Confederation Building, which, if you don't know, is just down the hill from Center Block and Parliament Hill. I was working for a member of Parliament at the time. I got out of my car, and a colleague of mine was just getting out of his, and they said, "Hey, did you hear about the incident in New York City? A plane crashed right into one of the Twin Towers." And that's how my day started. The day ended with me huddling in my office because the streets of Ottawa were deserted, barren. You couldn't. Everything was closed. I was almost afraid to go home because we thought, is there going to be another terrorist attack? Are they going to attack Ottawa? Crazy thoughts at the time. But yeah, I remember it very vividly. So anyway, I better shut up about that and get on to it. So Melanie Jolie was interviewed yesterday, well, at a scrum at this liberal retreat. This big joke of a retreat where Mark Carney's been brought in as an economic advisor to help Trudeau win the next election. And of course, this is all bogus, right? This is This is this is just a liberal distraction to keep you not thinking about how bad Justin Trudeau is. But I got to thinking about Melanie Jolie, and here she was, scrumming reporters. Do you think she's getting a sense of euphoria from what's happening in the United States, where, my God, there's a possibility, albeit still a weak one, that the American people will elect Kamala Harris as their president? This is a frightening idea because this woman is not capable of thinking by herself. Stuff her full of talking points and she can go for an hour and a half in the debate. And she was almost, I hate to say literally because it wasn't literally, but it was like they stuffed her full of talking points and slogans from her head to her toes. And she managed to get those talking points. She spewed those talking points for an hour and a half nonstop. And thank God thank God for her sake, she wasn't forced to think on her feet because she just kept repeating the talking point. But what about Melanie Jolie? You think she has aspirations to be prime minister? She's a very attractive woman. Yes, I know we all joke about her being Justin Trudeau's closeted girlfriend. And I've joked that she's quite capable and she has all of the expertise necessary to be a very good travel agent, but not to be a foreign affairs minister. I've said that multiple times. I think it's probably true. I don't think there's a lot there to Melanie Jolie that's not skin deep. But let's listen to her yesterday articulate the Liberal power talking points. This is how the Liberal Party, this is how the Trudeau government really feels about you wanting elections. She claims she's gone all across the country all summer talking to Canadians. They don't want elections. And she actually says it. She actually says Canadians don't want elections. They just want Trudeau to govern. They want the Liberals to stay in power. She couldn't have said it any clearer.
Your own caucus that you guys can still win. Alexander Manga said yesterday, you can't win in the next election with Justin Trudeau. How could you get? I mean,
No, the reporter here is asking, it's very hard to hear. He's
Well, of
asking about
course, and
elections.
we're doing that.
So what's
And
the
we're doing
message?
that. Yeah.
What is what do you say to them to convince
Reporter's
them
asking,
that,
are they prepared to face
the polls are not
an
what
election?
they are, or that they're so changeable?
You know, Mariki, what I heard this summer was Canadians don't want elections. They just want us to do the job. They just want us to govern. And that's what we're doing. We're governing. We're taking.
You know, there was a guy in Germany. Can't think of his name right now, and if I did, it wouldn't be good for my YouTube monetization. But there was a leader in Germany during the 1930s until about 1945 who used to say that there was the last election in Germany occurred in 1933, and there would be no more elections in Germany for 1,000 years because the German people just wanted him to govern, and they wanted his party to govern Germany and stop with these silly elections because we don't need elections anymore. And this is exactly what Melanie Jolie is saying. Who wants elections? Listen to her try to recover. It's almost like she recognizes, whoops, I identified the elephant in the room. I talked about the fact that Trudeau doesn't want another election. How many times have I warned you, dear viewers, that Justin Trudeau will do anything possible to avoid the next election? Because he will declare an emergency, whether it's another pandemic or whether it's another protest on the streets that has to be taken care of, and the Emergencies Act might not be enough. Might need a temporary postponement of the next election to do so. But Melanie Jolie actually articulates, if articulates and Melanie Jolie can be used in the same breath, she actually states what Trudeau's hidden agenda is. No more elections.
Making tough decisions. Why? Because times are tough. And so, wait, let me finish.
Wait. I'm speaking, so everybody shut up.
The reality is like I said in French, is we know that cost of living is too expensive, that people are frustrated with it. So what do? We do everything to reduce the cost of things and services.
So how are they reducing the cost of things and services, whatever these things are? How are they reducing that? Are they reducing taxes like the carbon tax? Are they ensuring interest rates are lower? No. Are they ensuring that we have more money to spend instead of being cash poor at the end of every month? Nope.
So that's why we have dental care. That's why we're working on a Medicare plan. That's why we have also affordable housing. And that's
All right. It's three things: a dental care plan that you can't use. In fact, the only people who can use the Liberals' dental plan are people with no teeth, who are too young or too old to have teeth left. And they're working on what to improving Medicare. How's that, Melanie? We have the worst medical system in the world because you can't get an operation when you need one. You can't find a doctor in most provinces. God help you if you really need medical assistance in this country. Let's stop propagating the mythology, and I hate to use that word mythology because a myth is not necessarily a lie. Let's stop propagating the lie, the falsehood, the deliberate invention that we have great healthcare in Canada, and it's all free. It's very expensive healthcare, and it's poor healthcare. And if you really need help sooner rather than later, you will cross that southern border into the United States to get real healthcare, even if it costs you. And stop saying, oh, it's free in Canada. It's not free. We're paying more in taxes for our healthcare system than an American does who has a private healthcare scheme. True. Fraser Institute discovered this about 4 or 5 years ago in a very extensive, exhaustive report on Canadian healthcare. It's the pits. It's the worst. We have the worst of both worlds. Socialized medicine that can't deliver good healthcare for anybody. So of course we're getting private clinics because people are desperate. And Melanie Jolie just rambles on about
It's
nonsense here.
also why we're really working on childcare. These are all things that the government are doing. And good news, we have new people now that will be there to help us to make sure that we have a very strong economy at the same time that the
Who are these new people? Mark Carney? He's the savior now. And it's all, the solution is all the government. Yeah, the government's going to give you affordable housing. BS. The government's going to give you dental care. The government's going to take care of you. The government's going to make it all better. The government's made it all worse. She is the problem, and she can't be
middle
the solution.
class is protected.
But we're not protected. And look at that smirk. Yeah, I'm in control. I'm in control. Power mad. We don't need elections. Don't ask for one. Don't expect an election because we're just going to be in power. We're just going to govern. Watch Immigration Minister Mark Miller. I've never seen this guy look more awkward. This guy is constantly putting his foot in his mouth by saying stupid things. But here he is trying to push back on horrible claims that immigration might be a source of unemployment in this country. Immigration might be a source of lack of housing. He says that's racist.
Well, I don't think we said it's racist to suggest that. I think what we said is that there is a tendency. People have been tendentious in their haste to link it entirely to immigration. And
Look at this, how awkward this man is. Have you ever seen him more awkward? It's like he just doesn't know what he wants to say.
I think that still is the case, but it is also naive to ignore the fact that immigration volumes have impacted affordability. And as the economic circumstances change in this country, so does the posture of the government of Canada. Again, we can do this without calling each other bigots. We can do this in the context where we're actually having a rational discussion about the national interest of Canada and whether we need to reduce immigration levels, and if so, to what extent. Blaming everything on immigrants is exactly what it is, and I don't think it's right, because if it's not accurate and you try to solve the problem, you're not solving it by simply cutting down on immigration levels. You have to actually deal with other things, whether it's Airbnb, whether it's interest rates that weren't caused by immigration, whether it is the failure of successive governments to provide adequate housing at the provincial level or even at the federal level. Those are all issues that you cannot blame immigrants.
Okay, I can't stand it anymore. So it's Airbnbs are the problem. If only we had enough Airbnbs, there'd be no affordable housing problem. People could just stay at Airbnb 7 days a week. Forget about finding an apartment. Forget about buying a house. Is this the next stage of the Trudeau housing policy? I mean, we all know now he wants to lease public land, government-owned land, to developers who will then supposedly build affordable housing on it, whether that means apartment blocks, Soviet-style apartment blocks, or whether that means single-family dwellings. I have no idea because they're not being specific about it. But regardless, you're not going to own the property. You're not going to own the land. You're not going to own the land that your house or your apartment is on, and you never will. And the developer won't own it either. It's going to be leased, what, for 99 years or something crazy like this? But is this the latest solution from the Liberal government? Just add some more Airbnbs and everybody will have a place to stay. I think I'm living in an insane asylum. I hear that from you folks all the time in your comments. In fact, I wanted to see some of your comments this morning because, I mean, this is absolutely. I'm just saying here, what about we're blaming everything on, yeah, well, Okay, there's some very, very, okay, it's a very upsetting comment here. I'm not even going to show that. Here, this is it. Make asylums great again. That is perfect. Yes, that is the new motto of the Liberal government. Make asylums great again, because all we need is more Airbnbs and everything will be solved. Okay, I want to move before we run out of time here. I want to move to the presidential debate last night, which was incredible. Kamala Harris said absolutely nothing except the talking points she was given to say. And it was all deflection and distraction and projection. All of the problems the Democrats have, she projected onto Donald Trump. She kept saying, let's turn the page, let's turn the page. Yes, let's turn the page on the Biden-Harris administration. I wish Trump had said that frequently during the debate, because that is exactly what the Americans need to do, is turn the page on the Biden-Harris administration and not on Donald Trump. He hasn't been president for 4 years. Does that idiot airhead Kamala Harris not know that? She's been the vice president. Joe Biden has been president. They're the ones who sold the country. They're the ones who let millions, tens of millions, 25 to 45 million illegals into the country. That's what Kamala Harris did at borders are. Inflation rate. She's the one who broke the tie, that broke the tie on the Inflation Reduction Act, which was so incredibly stupid title for a piece of for a bill that actually fueled inflation with trillions of dollars of unnecessary spending. This woman just doesn't get it. But let's have a listen to some of the best moments here that I've collected this morning.
I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist.
She is a Marxist.
Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay.
So how can anybody stand up there smirking, cackling, giggling, because she has been responsible for tens of millions of illegals streaming across the border, taking jobs, committing crimes? Yeah, and as Trump says later in one of these clips, they've taken over whole towns. Springfield, Ohio, Aurora, Colorado, outside of Denver. They've occupied like 3 or 4 different apartment complexes. I've been writing about this for the Post Millennial. It's absolutely shocking. But she can stand there and just smirk about it all because Americans are too stupid. They're not going to blame us for this. It is absolutely incredible. Let's listen to another clip.
National security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance, ere each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the...
You get that? It's time to turn the page. Yeah, on you and the Biden administration.
The American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for. Address what we must do to support...
What's her plan? billions of dollars, $40 billion of new government spending, which they've already done, and $25,000 free gift for new homeowners, which will put the price of new homes up by $25,000.
Support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies.
Okay. Need I say more? This is projection to the nth degree. Who's weaponizing the criminal justice system? Who's weaponizing the Department of Justice in the U.S.? The Democrats. And she's got the nerve to say Trump is going to weaponize the justice system. He's been the victim of the weaponization. Clearly, anybody who reads the news, follows the news in the United States, knows he has been assaulted by a bunch of outlandish criminal cases. One of them, the hush money case in New York, which, yes, he's actually been convicted on, makes no bloody sense to any objective observer. It's a non-disclosure agreement that somehow the Democrats have twisted into a pretzel to make it apply to a hush money case. And it has something to do with campaign funds. Nobody can even explain the relationship. But Kamala Harris thinks there's a relationship. Let's watch one more.
Tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago.
The real inflation,
this has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast.
Now I'm going to show you one more clip towards the end. Is this enough because I'm reading the responses from the mainstream media, and oh, Kamala did a wonderful job. Kamala trolled Trump. Kamala convinced Americans to turn the page on Donald Trump. The mainstream media is in the pockets of the Democratic Party, just as they are in Canada for the Liberal Party. But they just love Kamala Harris because she's going to be a cipher. She is going to be just a depository for what the globalists want to do to the United States. There's nothing alive in that head. Here's the closing statement from Donald Trump. And I wish he had have said this 15 times during the debate.
I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr.
Funny.
President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, "I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black." I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm asking.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I get this response.
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people.
Do you believe anybody would have the nerve to say that as a Democrat? That's all the Democratic Party has done is divide Americans by race. That's the only significant factor they consider. It's not class, it's not wage, it's race. And they keep pushing that theory. And they're all behind critical race theory. They have been subjecting students to that. Joe Biden, every time he has an opportunity to talk about terrorism, he says white supremacists are the single most dangerous terrorist threat to America. Joe Biden has divided Americans by race. Kamala Harris will do so even more. But this is outrageous that she even has the unadulterated nerve to suggest this.
You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race.
So if you just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things, why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power.
Thank God he had the courage to say that during this debate. We are sleepwalking into a nuclear war with Russia because of Biden's incompetence and the belligerence of NATO. Thank God he had the guts to say a nuclear war is a possibility. This is obvious.
Of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. what these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC.
Yes. Trump was asked, I think 2 or 3 times by one of these reporters, if he wants Ukraine to win the war against Russia. Trump didn't answer that because you can't say in a presidential debate, or you can't even say it publicly, the obvious truth. Ukraine has lost the war with Russia. It's already lost the war. It's been obvious for at least a year. And certainly in the last 6 months, anybody with an objective sense of reality can tell you Ukraine has lost the war. It's time for peace before we are enveloped in a nuclear catastrophe, which Donald Trump had the guts to say. No, he's not going to say, yes, I want Ukraine to win, when it's obvious that they can't win. They won't win unless NATO uses nuclear weapons to enforce a Ukrainian victory. Then, of course, all bets are off, and so is the world. It's over if that happens. So thank you again for watching today. I'm just having a look at some of your comments. Revoke our Canadian passport. Yeah. Let's have a look at. You got it, bro. They're all full of you know what. Yeah. It's just so true. Governments are all complicit. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. I'm just gonna have a look. Trump here, Marilyn Haley. Trump 2024, Poilievre 2024 now. Right on, Marilyn. Right on. This was excellent. And just having a few. You can read that one for yourself. Thank you for your comments, folks. I would like to spend more time actually showing some of them. And it's what? Some of these are crazy. Yeah, that's wonderful. Yes. Thank you, folks, for listening today. I'll be back again tomorrow with all the news you need to know. And I always tell it like it is, unapologetically and truthfully. We will see you again tomorrow, folks. Have a great day.